Hi everyone and welcome back to the interview question series, and in this video we see the top 50 Python interview questions for the data analyst. So without any further ado, let us start our tutorial right now. Let us start with the beginner level questions. The number one question is, what is Python and why it is commonly used in data analytics? So answer is, Python is a high level readable language and widely adopted because of library like Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib. This is the questions and this is the answers. Second questions, how do you install external library in Pythons? So you can use the pip command like pip install pandas, pip install and the library names. Or if are using here the conda or the virtual environment, you can using here the bnb or the conda. The third question is about the pandas. So what is pandas? So and how it is used in data analysis. So pandas is a Python library for the data manipulations with data frame and series structure. See, two things: data frame and the series structures. So how do you read a CSV file into a pandas data frame using pandas? Okay, into a data frame into pandas. Corrections. So import pandas as pd and df is equal to pd dot read underscore csv, and you need to give it to here your file name. See, import pandas, it's mean that you are taking all of the functionality from the pandas library and you can use it as pd, and df is nothing but the variable name and pd is nothing but my pandas library itself. Then read underscore csv is a method. So using this method you can read the csv file from your directory. The fifth question is, what is NumPy and why it is used in data analysis? NumPy provides support by large the multi-dimensional array and matrices plus the mathematical functions. It will provide you for the mathematical calculations. The sixth one is, how do you creating here a NumPy array? Simple. You can just import here NumPy as np. Then you can using here this np dot predefined functions called array, and you can just pass it here. You can creating here 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, multiple dimensions array you can create with the NumPy. Number 7 is, explain the difference between a data frame and a series. Data frame means the 2D tables with having the row and columns, and series means just 1D. Okay, same thing. If I say that, it's mean that, sorry, my bad, another tab is opening. Okay, so let's continue our discussion. So data frame means 2D tables. It means that we have the row as well as we have the column like the matrices. But in the case of series, we just having one. Okay, just 1D. And number 8, how do you selecting here the specific row and column from a data frame in Pandas? That means how can you selecting here the specific row and the columns? Because we know that in our data frame we have the row and we also have the we have the row and we also have the columns. So how can you basically selecting them? You can select it based on the index positions. Based on the index positions. So you can using here df.ilog functions. Ilog, I mean index locations. So here you can give the value for the row and the columns. So you can see that 2 semicolon 5 and 1 semicolon 5. It's meant 2 to 5 and 1 to 3 for integer based positional selections. You can basically using here this ilog functions. And then what is matplotlib and how it is used in data analysis? So a plotting library for Pythons is used for line plots, the histogram, scatter, etc. Okay. Question number 10 is, how do you create a line plot using matplotlib? So just you can import it. So import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Then you can using the predefined function in the matplotlib. It's called a plt.plot, and you can give it to your x and y coordinate. Okay, that's it. Number 11, explain the concept of data cleaning in data analysis. So identify and correcting the errors and inconsistencies, missing value, and the duplicate. Those are the thing for the data cleaning. So let's say if you have the missing value, it will also handle this out. If you have any kind of duplicate values, or if you have the NaN values, it will also handling those out. This is called the concept of data cleanings. Now, how do you check for missing value in a data frame using Pandas? So you can using here df.isNull, or you can see you can use the df.isNull. So using that, you can just checking that is there any NaN value or not, or null value or not. Okay. So this is a beginner level question. That's why it's quite easy. Then question number 13, what are some common method for handling the missing value in the data frames? So you can using here the drop NA, the fill now, and the interpolate. Okay, we basically using here those who are commonly used, drop now and the fill now. Okay, interpolate you also used, but mostly those are the common term, drop now and the fill now. So how do you calculate here the descriptive statistics for the data frame in Pandas? So you can using here the df.describe method. So to give you the count, the mean, standard deviations, the minimum, maximum, and the percentile, 25%, 50%, and the 75% percentile. How you actually using the df.describe. So what is histogram and how it is used in data analysis? So it's basically a graphical representation of distribution for the numerical data, like the bar representations range and the frequencies. How you actually plot a histogram, it will just show you in the from a bird with the distribution of the numerical data. See, only the numerical data. Now, how do you creating here a histogram using matplotlib? So you can using a plt.hist and you can give it to your data and you can also give here the bean size. I mean, how many beans it is creating here for the data. Then what is the purpose of data visualization in our data analysis? So to communicate the informations and insight from the data by the graph and chart, it's help to explore the patterns and the trends. So how you visualize your data, you can easily see that is there any correlations or how the data is look like and how the data is trends, or you can also get some pattern from the data. That's why data visualization is important case before putting it into a machine learning models. So how do you customize the appearance of a plot in Matplotlib? So you can set title, you can give some axis like x-axis, the y-axis. You can give the color, the line style, dot, 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 or hash, hash, hash. So period titles, period x levels, period y levels, period colors, etc. You can give it to here. So what is the purpose of data normalization in data analysis? The most and important questions. So answer is rescale the numerical features to common scale so that non-dominate, especially for the machine learning algorithm. Because you say that when your data is not normalized, it's that it unable to get one pattern from it. But when you are normalized your data, let's say from 0 to 1, it means that your machine learning model can easily identify the pattern from it. That's the main questions. That's the main things we actually use in data normalizations. So what are some common method for the data normalization actually? So using the mean mix scaling from the scikit-learn, the J-score normalizations, and the robust scaling we actually using here for the data normalizations. So how do you perform the data normalizations using the scikit-learn library? So from scalar.p processing, you import here the mean mix scalar. Then after that, you're creating here an instance of that or creating the object of that. And then it's simply going to using here the feed transform and passing here the data. Okay, scale data. And it will convert the data in the from our let's say 0 to 1 or the -1 to 1. I mean, it normalize them so that our machine learning model can easily identify the patterns. What is the purpose of data aggregations in the data analysis? So the summarize the condenses data by the grouping and computing the summary statistics. That is the purpose of the data aggregations. So how you basically aggregating here two columns or two rows, not row actually, two columns, because columns is not with the features. So you can just compute here some statistical analysis with the both of the values, I mean both of the columns. That's why data aggregation is important. So how do you performing here the data aggregations? You can using the group by. So let's say I'm going to group by with the name and I just get it here the mean value from here. Okay. So what is the purpose of data filtering in the data analysis? So starting the subset of data meeting a specific the conditions and the criteria. So data filtering means that let's say I need to filtering the data which the score is greater than 90 that you can see on here. So you can just filter the data. We can filter the data. Now let's say I need to filter the data. Let's say whose name is start with the dhar, or let's say end with the dhar, or constitute a word called dhar. So it's mean that we just filtering all the data who is constituting the word called dhar, right? Like that. So how do you perform? How do you filter data in data frames? So you can see filter data and def of the score. I mean from the whole data frame, we just selecting here and column that's called scores, and you can stack that. If the value is greater than 90, so just stacking, just give me all of them. Okay. So you can basically give one data analysis on your full data. So if you need any kind of projects, you can follow my multiverse series. Here you already build so many of projects. Here we do on high level data processings. Okay. Now beginner is gone. Now the intermediate is coming. So intermediate level questions. The first question is what is the difference between the lock and the iLock? the most common important questions. So log is selected by labels. This log is selected by labels. I mean row column names, and ilog is selected by the integer positions that you can see 2 to 5, or let's say 1 to 3. It's when that log is selected by the labels. You can just give it here row, or you can give it here the column name or the features name. But ilog is selected by the integer positions. So how do you handling here the categorical data in pandas? Also important one, converting to type category or using here the categorical instance. So which reducing here the memory and improve its performance. So because you know that the machine learning model just understanding here the numbers. So you need to also convert the data into the numerical formats. Question number 3, what is the purpose of the pd.concat function in pandas? To concatenate two or more data frames along row and column or stack or merge. Let's say I have a data for the movies. Okay, so if you are see that how can you creating here movie recovery systems. So let's say we have the three separate data frames. So if I wanted to join them into one data frame, so how can I use that? How can I do that? I can using this pd.concat, right? So to concatenate two or more data frame along the row and the columns. So if it have a primary key, so you can easily add it with them. Okay. So how do you handle the date time in pandas? So you can using the pd.to date time to convert, and dt is accessors to the extracting here year, month, and the date. I mean day. You can easily extract in. Okay, date time. So what is the purpose of the resample method in pandas? So it basically used in the case of time series. So for the time series data to changing the frequency, see change the frequency from day to monthly, or you can do the aggregations. Because in the case of time series, time based on the time, it will just go in the trend up or down like that. So what you can do, you can creating here a frequency, let's say from the day to month, you can using the resamples, or you can also taking here some resampling data from it. Okay. So how do you perform the one hot encoding in pandas? The most important questions. Okay. So answer is use the pd.get dummies to converting here the category data into dummy indicator variable. Let's say I have the two category. Let's say one is a male. Let's say another one is female. So what it can do, actually, it just going to converting here male into 0 or female into the 1. Okay, just give it here some kind of randoms, not random from yes, random, not actually having some uh, uh, what is called rules like 0 1 2 like that. Okay, in a consistent manners. Okay, so period gatam is. So what is the purpose of the map function in Python, and it's relevant in data analysis? So why map functions? So we actually using the map functions as the iterators. So apply here functions to each item and iterables in data analysis. You might apply it in a series or to transform the values. Okay, you can just use it in a series and you can just get in here all the value from it instead of using here the for loops or the while loops. So how do you handle the outlier in data frame in pandas? Another important questions. So answer is remove by Z-score. You can use the here the IQR Intel quantum range, the wine shortizations, or transform them into lock or trim them. This is also important. IQR, it's basically used Intel quantum range. So what is the purpose of the pd.melt function in pandas? Answer is reshaping the data frame from wide to long format, like column to row, and it's useful for the cleaning analysis. So how you to converting it and long from into so wide from the long from, you can using the pd.melt. So how do you perform the group wise operation in pandas? Simple, we can use the group by. So use group by that aggregate them based on the mean, the summations, or the count, right? So what is the purpose of merge and join function in pandas? See, both to combine the data frame based on the more keys, like merge is more flexible and join is convenience when you are joining on indices. When you join them based on indexes, you can basically use them, but merge is more flexible. So how do you handling the multi-level indexes like the hierarchical indexing in pandas? So you can use the set index or specify here the index column. So when reading it, I mean when you basically read it, you can just give it here and set index so that you can actually handle the multi-level indexing, because in the case of hierarchical indexing, okay, for accessing the multiple levels. So what is the purpose of shift methods? So shift index by a specific number of periods useful for the lag lead value in the time series. So in the case of a time series data, you have the lag or lead value. So when you need to shifting it by the index numbers, so you can using here the shift methods. So how do you handling the imbalanced data sets in pandas? So you can use the technique like the oversampling or the undersampling. So it's basically used for the class weights and specialize the algorithms. So you can also use, you can also follow my credit card fraud detection projects. So I will discuss about this, the Uber sampling and the undersamplings. So what is the purpose of the pipe method in the pandas? It's basically used for creating here pipelines. Let's say it's basically allow here the chaining functions for the data frame and series. It helps with write cleaner code like a pipelines. Let's say you're creating here a pipeline. So first we will do the histograms. We do creating here line plot. Let's say we apply here the machine learning models. We do the regulations or we find in the model. Also we show the accuracy or the precisions or the performance graph. So just creating here and pipelines. Same thing you using the pipe method in pandas. If you need to use it in the case of data analysis, right? Cool. Now let's come into the advanced level questions. So why actually speaking slow, quite speed? Because see that most of the users just come and go. So that's why quite speed and quite speed, because every question you can see in the screen. That's why. Okay, advanced level questions. Explain the concept of method chaining in pandas and provide an example. Most important questions. Applying multiple operations in one chain to improve its readability and the consistency. Why examples? Let's say I need to removing here the drop nan value, and after that I wanted to drop in here an index as well as I fill the nan value with zero. See, we do three things. First one is we drop the nan value, and then we drop the index, and also we fill it with the zero. That is called the method chaining, right? Describe how you would handling here the memory optimizations for the large datasets in pandas. So converting the data types to efficient one, we use category like category variables, and we also use here the sparse matrix for the sparse data. So if you have any kind of categorical data, we can using here the categorical data for it. And if you have a sparse matrix, you can use the sparse data and process in a chunk. Process in a chunks. I mean, we divide the data into some kind of pieces. Explain the purpose of the cross staff functions in pandas and provide an examples. So it's basically creating here and cross tabulation tables, frequency distribution for variables. Examples, let's say I use here the period cross tabs, and you give it here the categories and the labels. We just give it here two things. One is the category, second one is the tab labels. It basically creating here and cross tabulation tables based on the frequency distribution of the variables, right? Based on the variables. So how would you efficiently handle and process the large scale time series data in Python? The most important questions. So use a library called Dux or the Bergs for the out of competitions and optimize the data structures and algorithms. Use the parallel processing. See, we can do three things like we can using here library Dux or Bergs for out of core competitions, or we can using here the optimized data structures and algorithms. And see, data structure and algorithm is why important is coming on here. And you can using the parallel processing that is happening in operating system like that. How do you handle the embellished data set in classification problem in Python? Another important questions, oversampling the minority classes, you can use the smooth, and undersampling the majority, and use the deeper evolution metrics like average score, the precisions, and recall. An algorithm is less sensitive to the imbalance like decision tree. Okay. Question number 6, how would you perform the feature scaling in Python and why it is important in machine learning? To ensure the features on similar scale, so on no one dominate the gradient descent or distance calculations technique, standardization like mean or standard deviations, and normalization from the 0 to 1. That's why we actually do the feature scaling, and that's why it's important, so that our data can easily reach to the global minimum points. Okay. Now explain the purpose of the rolling functions in pandas for the time series analysis and provide an example. So it's basically computing the rolling statistics like mean or the sum over a window, like a sliding window, like a sliding into problem in the DSA. It's just loading them, rolling them, rolling them, rolling them, and when the window size is trigger, then it will go for the another one. See, df of rolling mean, df of value, rolling wind is 7, and you can see min. It also used in the case of the large language models, because you need to rolling here, I mean you need to give it to here at tokens, I mean in a sentence we just rolling them, and after that another sentence, another sentence, another sentence, like that. That's why rolling function is also important in the case of large language model. So I'm actually creating here a large language model from scratch, so this is also important. So explain the purpose of a stack and a stack functions in pandas and examples. So stack is pivot columns into the row, and a stack is pivot row back into columns. It means that stack is pivot the column into the row, and another stack is pivot the row into the columns. Example, the df stacks, you can stack and unstack. Okay, it is used when you are basically change the dimensions of the vectors. So how would you handle the multicollinearity in the regression analysis using Pythons? So remove one of the correlated variables, like you can use the dimension reductions like PCA, principal component analysis, and the regulation technique like the rich or the lasso regressions. The last one, explain the purpose of the PCA, important one, in scikit-learn, and how it can be used for dimensionality reductions. So PCA is identify the principal component like directions or the maximum variance, and project data into the lower dimensions space while present the variance. It's good for reducing the features. So when you have the multiple number of features and you're reducing the features, you can using the PCA. I mean for the feature selections. So those are the important questions. You can just check it out before the interview. Okay, those are the common questions. Okay, so that's it for today. Now I hope you enjoy this full tutorial, and make sure to subscribe to the channels, as well as if you want to learn more about the GenAI projects, you can also follow this out. You can see here GenAI projects. You already have the 19 projects. You start from the build an AI learning assistance to build a powerful Telegram personal bot with the N8 and the no uh, code tools. Okay, that's it from my side. I hope you enjoy this again and subscribe the channels. Thank you and bye bye.